What's going on, creators? Yeah, I just want to get on here and bring everybody back to now. Appreciate y'all being here and vibing with me for a bit. Yeah, today I got a bunch of stuff to talk about. Hopefully, add something positive to your mental diet. I know in my space at the moment, there's a lot of drama and more and more so propaganda at this point. I wanted to talk about that, and talk about this new wave of just hysteria, and so much of it's just wizardry and spellcraft and illusions, but ultimately not to get so caught up in it that we become unconscious and drawn into that pendulum, but to bring awareness to it so that when you do see it, when you are exposed to these narratives, and things from the world that possibly start to draw you into them, whatever happens, it's just going from one thing to the next thing to the next thing, which is just constantly just looking around and going, why is anybody even falling for this anymore? Makes no sense that this narrative is even going on. But at the same time, looking at the people that are getting swept up in it, that believe it's real, or virtue signaling, making it part of their identity, to not be triggered by that. And not to look at the world as something to battle and change and resist, and just want to just shake people out of this fucking sleepwalking. And I've been there where I wanted to do that too. But realizing more and more so that everybody is on a spiritual progression, awakening process, and kind of revising how you're interpreting the world, how you're invested into it, and really techniques that I use personally that help to kind of just walk in this new space, and so part of that has to do with being in a state of flow and working on making the present moment as enjoyable, as peaceful, as unresistant as possible, but also accepting whatever God brings to the present moment, and trying to have a better relationship with that. Also, letting go of a lot of limiting beliefs and assumptions that you're telling, constantly in the present moment, why we need to be suffering right now, why we need to be in anger and rage and vengeance, and all these different things. How long are we going to spend eternity, which is only ever happening now? Getting out of this idea that linear time is this paradigm that I operate in. That even that kind of shit's coming from like a way of thinking that is ultimately something to let go of. That's part of the old identity. And whenever like the world is starting and the people around you is starting to echo a lot of the same shit, sometimes it feels like even though you try to unplug from the world or whatever, the media, at least the national narratives, the cultural dramas and whatnot, it still kind of creeps in and gets in your space and kind of tempts you with these different things to be self-righteous about, and things to create an us versus them mentality and division and separation and all this type of shit. The baddies are over here, the good guys are over here, and it's constantly the good guys to the rescue, and not realizing that there's just both two gangsters going to war. It's like East Coast, West Coast, mafia shit. Once you realize that that's a whole lot of what's going on, a lot of it's like real gangland type of, it's like only we can use violence. You can't do it. We can. So therefore, because we're in charge, it's like you got to trust us to do it. It's like, who the fuck are you people? It's like, what are you tempting me with? An illusion of safety and what you're just gonna just. But that goes a lot into like narratives and stories that we all got to kind of let go of, because ultimately it's all part of creation, and not to sit there and judge creation, because it is functioning the way it's supposed to function on some level. Because if you can see through a lot of the spells and the wizardry and the propaganda, it's all a mind game. It's all part of this mental constructing narratives and constructing beliefs and assumptions about reality that ultimately are just fiction, but there is no fiction. It's like enough people start, buying into it, then it starts manifesting, it starts creating a pendulum, and it starts creating a fucking thing. Because that's who we are. We're like our old identity. It was like, oh, you're just a piece of shit, random monkey that's just on this spinning rock in a black void of nothingness, and it just blew up and exploded for no reason, and everything's chaos. And that kind of satanic kind of worldview, is one way to think about it, because that's, you can just let that go, because that's not even, once you even start to research shit for yourself, you find that the whole materialism paradigm is just antiquated. And a lot of the science that people are supposed to be trusting and whatnot is like, if you look into quantum science, it's like none of this shit goes together. It's like, it's one of those things you have to come to your own kind of understanding of that through personal experience. You can start to test like quantum science and start putting a lot of these physical principles to work in your own life and seeing the results of that with your own eyes, and it's like you're the one doing the science, which science is a process, not a atheistic religion. It's like it's a process of learning truth, where you make a hypothesis, you research, you test the hypothesis, you're open to like your hypothesis being wrong. If it's right, then it's like, then you try to debunk it. It's like there's like a process of just learning shit versus this spell, this wizardry of like it's the priests of science and truth, which is hilarious because it's inverted and opposite, and it's just leading people down this path of just suffering, and ultimately manifesting hell on their own selves, through their own mental activity, creating this, basically as their inner man starts to be projected out, like is happening for every single being, that is probably hearing this. It's like, your beliefs, your assumptions about reality, your perception of reality is entirely, inside of you, and it's being projected out. It's like, you're connected with your life is another way to say that. It's like you are exactly where you're at because where you're at in consciousness, and until you start to, ultimately let go of fear, which is holding you in a state of consciousness that you don't actually even want to be in, and you're just continuously going through these loops, just suffering. We're seeing the same. We're seeing it playing out in the world. So you can, look at the world as a reflection on some level of stuff going on in the hearts and minds of every being that's here. Collectively, it's being pushed out into this this narrative of culture. But like in that, now we go from fear of death to war, which is just reflecting the inner state, this inner mind virus, basically, in the minds of, people, beings, just consciousness on some level, purging that shit, which ultimately it's already been purged. Part of this is coming to an understanding in the here and now, right now, that God's real. It's just like it's already happened. It's just like shit is already like that. It's like, God's already, it's already, the things you're begging and pleading God for, it's like you've been blessed with it. The only reason you don't experience it is you just don't believe it. You're holding on to these old beliefs that say, oh no, I'm a fucking random monkey spinning on some rock in a void of blackness, and time is ticking, tick, tick, tick. It's like, it's not how reality works. It works quantumly, and it works more cyclically in the present moment. The shit from yesterday is confronting you today. Did it? And it's like the quote unquote future is this imaginary thing that you're only ever doing in the present moment. Most of the time, putting like, oh, once you go through spending eternity suffering, then you can spend eternity in heaven with God, experiencing love, even though you can experience that now because the kingdom of God is within you. according to what the Bible and Jesus said, that you can also start putting to the test and seeing it for yourself. Which I encourage you to start doing it to your, for yourself. Start changing a lot of your limiting beliefs, your assumptions, and watch is how you do that, and you just embody the state of being a child of God, for one, being who you actually are in Christ, for two. And I feel like that's a big part of like this progression. What you're seeing in the world is as like the second coming of Christ. I believe personally is that realization within the outer world, that it's connected with God, and it's like because you can start seeing the separation first when you start seeing this antichrist spirit that the Bible talks about, and you can see it just in culture. The obvious people that are just fucking brain dead, just parroting whatever narratives that's coming on, but not to sit there and like judge them as like some lost cause, because the whole world is dead. It's been dead. It's like once you start to wake up, you wake up from the dead. It's like you snap out of that zombie automaton. Well, I just am just doing this because some talking head on TV that's authoritative told me to. It's like it's like, why are you wearing a dirty rag over your face? 8 hours a day. It's like, well, because my boss, who then got his orders from this other boss, that got this orders from some other it's following this external it's like the sin of Adam, I believe. It's just like you gave your authority over to this external expert out here that's just leading people off a fucking cliff, which you don't want to laugh too much. It's like part of it is you should laugh more because it's such a joke. It's so funny in this, like, when you take a far enough step back, the ironies and just like the everything. It's like everything is inverted and backwards. And then you have like the experts being the most deceived group of people with the least understanding of it, because they're so fucking just inundated with just all of this bullshit from it's like if you're like speaking as like someone who does a lot of like music production and stuff like that, it's easy to start getting so fucking inundated with like compression and just like tweaking EQs and just panning and just all this kind of shit you can do to tweak a sound. That it's like, oh, I just went into this tiny little sizzle on this fucking hi-hat, where you're so absorbed in everything that's going on in it, where it's like a 10-year-old or whatever that'll listen to the track is just going to turn it up and just, it's like they know instantly whether it's good or bad. And it's like, oh, this is fucking cool, or just, this corny ass shit, get this off of here. And so it's like you can get so involved in it that you lose sight of like, what am I even doing? It's like, this is somebody else going to be able to understand this and like relate to it, whatever's, and I feel like that's a big part of it, for one. But then the other part of it, for two, is like I have a personal bias, from like seeing the media been like full of shit for 20 years, where it's like I automatically just assume not to even listen to it. It's like almost, it's like, oh, they said to run and get an experimental injection that they have no idea what the long-term side effects or any side effects whatsoever is from a gangster cartel, that has a track record of just releasing shitty things that cause like death. It's like it's like I don't trust these people already. Yet now, because of their proven track record of incompetence, lying, and deception, and immoral business practices. So, okay, now you get led down that rabbit hole. It's like, oh, well, the world is saying, and by the world, we're talking the external authority symbol that, a lot of the people that don't have a strong relationship with God start making things like that. I believe personally, and this could just be maybe unnecessary just labeling, but I feel like a lot of like the Jews, it's like external. Yes, that 10 Commandments on this tablet, it's outside, and it's like a lot of people get into that kind of mentality, and I feel like when listening to like Jesus, there's like brings it from the outer world to the inner world to actually get the kind of relationship, with God and everything else. It's like seeking the kingdom was like Jesus. If you actually listen to the teachings of Jesus instead of most churches that are just bouncing all over the fucking Bible, most of it in Old Testament shit, which is really strange to me that a lot of like Christian churches that I've like bounce around into is just like, let's focus on what David's doing in the Old Testament and let's go over here, and it's like, this is like, is this a Christian, is this labeled a Christian church? Why aren't we ever talking about what Jesus said to do? It's bizarre, but at the same time, even like the Bible, it's like laid out like Paul is the disciple to listen to for the Gentiles, so maybe, who knows, I'm sure there's some divine reason for it, but like, looking at like, what the media is like saying at the time, where it's like, okay, well, everybody needs to go rush out and do that. This is gonna save us all from this fear of death that we're all facing, because a lot of the shit from the world is serving this identity of separation and that illusion of separation, and so it's like a lot of that fear is believing that God is separate from you and that you are doing something that's then going to cut you off from it, instead of realizing that connection is within you, and that's all you have to do is ask for that. All you have to do is just ask to start going down the path of truth. God is not going to force you to do anything. It's like God is love, and ultimately what's going on is just the release from fear and torment, letting those thoughts of that go, and so that's a big part of what's happening in the world, is as the people are awakening, the people that are that choosing, or not even really choosing, the people that are just unconsciously reacting to fear, creating more fear, and just perpetuating these cycles of just insanity, basically. It's as one group, it's all working together. So it's like the more that people elevate their consciousness, the more the unconscious should become more and more just like, I don't know, pressure. Maybe pressure is the right word. I don't know. Just more and more of like, it's like, oh, you took the injection once, now get a booster. Now get another booster. Oh, get another booster. Show me your papers. Oh, and by the way, next day, let's all support this country and hate this other country. The past 2 years didn't just happen. It's like, motherfucker, I don't trust what you're saying, and I haven't trust what you said, and now you're creating a good guy over here that's like, I'm supposed to just be like, oh, okay. And one of the quickest progressions of propaganda to start getting people fired up is these fucking false narratives involving look at what they're doing to the kids. As soon as that starts hitting your radar, from some media person, babies in incubators is something that stands out. It's like, oh, that really like lit a fire under people to now let's have vengeance towards this other group. A lot of the times, you're seeing trickery, spells, wizardry, to get your consciousness in a state that is ultimately reflecting more and more this descent into darkness, basically. So it's like, as the people become more and more awake, the asleep become more and more unconscious. It's like, but it's all balanced. So it's like, it's equally balanced, and all the states already exist, and creation it's already been done. Everything's already happened. It's the world's already been judged. It's like it's already been like that. And so basically, what you're seeing is people reaping their seeds of consciousness consciously. People consciously choose to experience oneness with God. Heavenly things, joy, peace, all the fruits of the Spirit, that becomes more and more manifest. But, the people that choose fear and suffering just keep double down on it, double down. It's just getting worse and worse. And the fear is just fucking just getting more and more real, even though it's an illusion, but they don't realize it's an illusion because they don't realize what they're afraid of is their shadow. Mainly because they're just not being obedient to what God said to do. And it's like, it's, people don't want to hear it, but it's like, it's, if you don't realize that, how do I say that? It's like, if you don't realize part of your identity is already one that's connected with God, you're creating in separation, which is only creating more suffering. It's like we are always just manifesting shit. It's like if you're unconsciously just creating these patterns, which you can see as you start to try to move from the old you to the born again to new you, which just happened now. Like the old you is gone. You're new now. You're just by asking. It's like you just start receiving the gift of God. Then it's like, stop waiting for God to like punch you and beat the shit out of you or something. It's just like, it's not like that. And so, but if you've been traumatized a lot, it's like, and are used to people behaving like that, obviously, but it's like letting go of those fears, letting go of that shit, and ultimately understanding who you are now. And that's something you do on your own, though. No one's going to force you to do it. And so, other than that, I think I'm a balance. Personally, anything going on in the world, don't get caught up in it. Don't get sucked into other people's pendulums and hysterias and whatnot. Ultimately, if you want peace, then be peace. Be that in your own life. In your own family, in your own household, and in your own neighborhood. Be the change yourself, because there is not, as you be it first, then everything fucking changes, because it's a reflection. So it's like, if you're being peace, then the reflection will, you start getting peace reflected back in different areas of your life, because reality is just one big mirror constantly showing you who you believe yourself to be, and who you're going to be in the face of whatever's coming to your awareness now, it's that kind of thing. And so, other than that, I think I'm about. So, I appreciate you guys liking, sharing, subscribing, all the social networking things. I appreciate you, your spiritual support and your financial support. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. And if you need music, if you're making truth videos, you're just making artistic thing, whatever you're doing that you might need music for, feel free to hit up my SoundCloud, and if you can download the tracks, you can use it for free. I don't care if you monetize your videos or any of that type of stuff. If you're doing something that has a budget, some commercial thing or whatever, and you can, license it, definitely appreciate that. If you're gonna be on TV or whatever, just fill out a cue sheet, if anything. I appreciate it. And other than that, I think that's going to be it. So till the next now, God bless.